Humans are fragile little things, aren't they? In the face of uncertainty, we cling on to the idea of a greater creator being. A being of benevolence and purpose. But what if this creator thing doesn't care or acknowledge us, or even intended to create us? This is very deep. Nerdy midwit atheists will eat this shit up. Anyway, today or tonight, I am explaining Azathoth, the supreme creator deity of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. What is it? Who is he? Find out more on this video. Now, let's start from the very beginning. The name Azathoth first appeared in a 1919 note Lovecraft wrote to himself, which was simply Azathoth, hideous name. The name Azathoth later appeared in another note that was intended to be a basis for a potential story, which was a terrible pilgrimage to seek the knighted throne of the far demon sultan Azathoth. During 1920 to 1925, Lovecraft had no idea what to do exactly with the idea of Azathoth. Originally, Azathoth was going to appear in a novel that was simply called, well, Azathoth. Inspired by William T. Beckford's 1786 novel, Vathek. He began writing it in 1922, but never finished it. Hell, he didn't go past the opening of it. During this time, the iconic description of Azathoth being at the center of all infinity, kept asleep by the piping of blasphemous flute players, was originally a description for his son and messenger, Nyarlathotep, as seen in the 1924 short story, The Rats in the Walls. It wasn't until the fall of 1926 when Lovecraft wrote The Dream Quest of Unknown Gaddafi when Azathoth was more fleshed out. This is where Azathoth was established as the supreme creator deity of the mythos, and where his center of all infinity description comes from. Here, Azathoth was described to be the boundless demon sultan that gnaws hungrily in chaos amid the pounding and piping of the other gods, as they play and dance awkwardly around his throne in the formless central void. Unfortunately, this novella was never published during Lovecraft's lifetime. However, from that description, Azathoth was clearly influenced by the fictional creator deity Mana-Yud Sushai and the concepts of primordial void or primordial chaos seen in Greek mythology and Taoism. Oh, hey, post-enemy here. So, I forgot to mention that, according to scholar George T. Welts, he said that Azathoth might be inspired by the alchemical term Azoth, meaning the primogenic source essence of life. So, yeah, that's another inspiration that Lovecraft got from Azathoth, the concept of Azoth. So, yeah. But anyway, back to the video. Mana-Yud Sushai, created by Lord Dunsany, appeared in a 1905 collection of short stories, The Gods of Pegana. He was described to be a god no man prays to, but only the gods may pray. He is the central creator deity of this pantheon, and after he created the rest of the gods, he went to sleep. If he ever wakes, he will destroy his creations, and there will be no more worlds and no more gods. So, to keep him sleeping forever, Skral the drummer has to keep playing his drum to lull his creator to sleep, if he even stops for an instant, he and the rest of existence will die. From that description, you can clearly see the parallels. A creator deity that is lulled by the sound of another deity's musical instruments. And these parallels are made even stronger with fungi from Yuggoth. In fact, this novella and the rest of Lovecraft's dream cycles are homages to Lord Dunsany, who just so happens to be Lovecraft's muse. Which would explain why Azathoth is so similar to Mana Yu Tsushai. But enough about the gods of Pegana. Let's proceed to the next inspiration for Azathoth. The concept of primordial void or primordial chaos. The concept of primordial void or primordial chaos was seen in Greek mythology and Taoism. In archaic Greek, the word chaos doesn't mean discord or disorder like our modern definition, but rather refers to a vast abyss or void that lacks form and existed before the creation of everything, and or created everything. However, the word chaos can also refer to a primordial entity that created everything. But what about Taoism? The concept of a primordial void in Taoism is referred to as Wuji, literally meaning no limit, although some English translators translate it to as the ultimate of nothingness. It states that all things that existed originated from Wuji, and all shall return to it. It's worth noting that although primordial chaos and Wuji both represent states of nothingness before all things came to be, they have unique traits that make them different. Now you might be wondering, my dearest Shoggoth, since when did Lovecraft know about Taoism? Well, the only tangible proof that Lovecraft has read about or was at least aware of Taoist thought was in my favorite novella, The Whisperer in Darkness, when Albert Wilmarth said this. I guessed from hints which made even my informant pause timidly. The secret behind the Magellanic clouds and the globular nebula, and the black truth veiled by the immemorial allegory of Tao. But anyway, we can see that Lovecraft was clearly inspired by these two concepts when he was developing Azathoth. Azathoth's title of the nuclear chaos, Lovecraft is clearly using the old Greek definition of chaos. In fact, again, whenever Lovecraft mentions a great old one in conjunction with the word chaos, he's using the old Greek definition, as seen in The Whisperer in Darkness and Out of the Eons. But how are we so sure that he's using the old definition and not the contemporary definition? Well, here's a letter that Lovecraft wrote to his bestie, Clark Ashton Smith, where he describes Azathoth as primal and is the mindless lord of united chaos, father of all other horrors, and coeval of the ultimate abyss itself. Which might mean that Azathoth is just as old as the ultimate abyss, but that doesn't make sense as the ultimate abyss is beyond all concepts of time. This is likely a reference to how chaos in Greek mythology refers to both a place and a being, so it would make sense that Azathoth and the ultimate abyss are probably one and the same. But that's just my thoughts. In stories like The Whisperer in Darkness and Fungi from Yuggoth, Azathoth and his realm were described to transcend form, force, symmetry, matter, space, and time, which also parallels to how primordial chaos is described. Alright, so now we know Azathoth's real-life conception. But what role does he serve within, the mythos? Well, the answer is not much, really. Yeah, sure, he was described to be the mindless lord of all things, and the nuclear chaos in stories like The Dreams in the Witch House, The Haunt of the Dark, Fungi from Yuggoth,
Hydra,
and certainly, but not least, The Whisperer in Darkness, and was even a titular character in the fictional Azathoth and Other Horrors collection of poems by Edward Derby in The Thing on the Doorstep. But aside from maybe Fungi from Yuggoth, Azathoth never really appeared or served any significant role in any story that Lovecraft has wrote. It's a very similar case for Shum the Groff. Yes, Azathoth might be the almighty god of the Cthulhu mythos, but he doesn't really have much going for him. He doesn't even serve as an overarching antagonist in any story he is mentioned in. Which, I guess, that's the point of Azathoth. He's supposed to not have a major role because he's a reflection of Lovecraft's own personal views of the universe. Lovecraft scholar and correspondent Fritz Leiber Jr. said this in H.P. Lovecraft 4 Decades of Criticism that perfectly summarizes Azathoth. Such a pantheon and such a chief deity can symbolize only one thing: the purposeless, mindless, yet all-powerful universe of materialistic belief. Now, before this video ends, you might be wondering, does Azathoth dream all of existence, and when he wakes, will it all be gone? The answer is yes, actually. In Fungi from Yuggoth, you can see Azathoth dreaming existence, and in Hydra, it states that all things that exist were created by the thoughts of Azathoth. And in this letter, written by Clark Ashton Smith to H.P. Lovecraft in 1930, he says that Azathoth represented as devouring our physical universe, which could mean that he is both the beginning and the end. So, in conclusion, Azathoth is basically Lovecraft's take on God. And he interprets that if God really exists, he doesn't care or know that you exist. And he created you by pure accident. God in the lens of a misanthropic, nihilistic atheist.